Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the August meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Board of Adjustment. Roll call to my left.
William Pearlstein.
Jan Conacy is excused today.
Fred Townsend, Board Attorney.
Edie Heron.
Rick Perry.
And I am Barry Brandt. Today we have two cases to hear, but before I get into that, I wanted to let everyone know that because we only have four board members today, that any decision has to be a majority, 3-1 or 4-0 to be approved. A 2-2 tie will result in a denial of the application. Our rules require that owners of properties within 200 feet of the properties in question are notified of the variance requests. Marco, was the meeting and public notice properly posted and the public notified?
Mr. Chairman, the city verifies that this meeting and the matters before the board were properly noticed as follows. The agenda for the Board of Adjustment regular meeting was posted at the City Hall and on City Portal on August 14th, 2026, and was amended and reposted on August 19th, 2026. Regarding case number 0726-05 for the property located at 259 Country Club Drive, and case number 072-06 for the property located at 1 Rehoboth Avenue. The public notices were posted at City Hall and on the City Portal on July 31st, 2026. The public notices were published in the Cape Gazette on August 7th and August 11th, 2026, and in the Delaware State News on August 5th and August 7th, 2026. Written notice of each case was mailed to all property owners of record within 200 feet of the respective subject property, and the required signage was posted on each property. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the reading of the verification.
Thank you, Marco. And as far as correspondence, for 259 Country Club Drive, we received 5 emails and one late one today that just was printed and handed out. Did everyone on the board get a chance to review them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we did receive one letter in response to the Grotto Hotel application. I will say that the 6 letters for Country Club Drive were in favor of approving. At this point, I don't think we have any minutes to approve. No, nothing. And we did have one NOD that was being circulated and passed around, so I think that's taken care of. Today's cases involve a request for relief of the city zoning code through multiple area variances. The board will apply the quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for boards of adjustment. Pursuant to section 270-74 of the city zoning code, the Board of Adjustment is authorized to grant variances that are not contrary to public interest if a literal interpretation of a code or regulation will result in an unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty to the owner, so that the spirit of the zoning ordinance is observed, provided that such relief may be granted without substantially impairing the intent of the code. Under Delaware law, an applicant for an area variance must prove that the zoning requirements create an exceptional practical difficulty. To determine whether an exceptional practical difficulty exists, the board must weigh the following 4 factors: the nature of the zone where the property lies, the character and use of the immediate vicinity, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties and their uses, and finally, whether failure to remove the restriction would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This standard is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Everyone who chooses to speak today will be required to give their testimony under oath. I will ask our counsel, Mr. Townsend, to administer the oath. We do not have a court reporter, so if at any time we have crosstalk or you're not speaking into the microphone, we're just going to stop you and ask you to please speak up or cut the cross chatter. I would like to just raise a hand at this point. Anyone here going to speak today for or against the application in the audience? Okay, thank you. After the applicants have finished, and we will close the public portion of the meeting, and then the board will discuss each case amongst ourselves. We may ask additional follow-up questions if we need it. And I'd also like the public to know that the board members may use electronic devices on occasion. These are just looking to allow the board members to zoom in on diagrams, and they are not being used to communicate with anyone outside. So at this point, I'm going to get started with case number 1, 259 Country Club Drive. And Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, good afternoon. This is case number 0726-05. This is a bit of a unique case in that it's not simply the zoning code, but the Chapter 253, the tree code of Rehoboth Beach, plays a role in this variance request. So I'll go ahead and outline just some of the key takeaways of the report. But sitting with me is the city arborist, Mike Lilly here, who it will be available for any questions relating to the trees you may have. This application was provided by Mary Good, who is the owner of the property, and the applicant is seeking one variance from 270-35D1 of the zoning code to permit renovations and additions to an existing single-family dwelling without providing the 2 required off-street parking spaces. This application came to us via a building permit application. And during the review process, the building inspector flagged this as a potential issue. And after working with the applicant, it was decided that a variance was desired to retain the trees that may be affected by the parking, off-street parking. We do have the surveys available, and I'd be happy to pull them up, as well as exhibits the exhibits that also have option A and option B of the various driveway paths. But for these purposes, there are 2 trees, and this was verified between the third-party arborist that the applicant retained, as well as the city arborist. They're on page 3, that is under section 2, tree and site context. The first is a silver maple, 20 inches in DBH. That is the diameter of the tree at base height, about 4 feet off from the ground. And the second one is a silver maple, single trunk, multi-stem, 20 inches, 28 inches, and 14 inches. So both of these would be recognized under the tree code as heritage trees. Now, when it comes to how the proposed driveway may impact the trees, I'll allow the arborist to speak to that. The only thing that I will make a statement of, options A and B, as shown from the applicant, are acceptable ways that we allow driveways for the residential properties in Rehoboth. One is in tandem, where it's a 9 by 36 foot long driveway. Typically, these are put on the sides of the house that have the 10-foot side yard setback, 9 feet in width. That allows for an additional foot before a building may be constructed. And the other one is side-by-side, 18 foot by 18 foot. After speaking with the arborist, the preferable method, if one is imposed, would be tandem, to certainly keep the driveway further, as far away from the roots as possible. The arborist as well, that's also put in this report, would recommend, if anything, drive strips as minimum intervention for the driveway. That is the basis of the variance request. Outside of this variance, no additional variances are being requested, and we anticipate the applicant to come into full compliance with all other zoning, building, and tree code specifications from the city.
All right, thank you, Corey. I guess at this point, I would ask Ms. Good if you want to come up here and sit, since we're talking about you. And at this point, we're going to have questions for Corey. So, Bill, do you want to start, if you have any?
Yes. Was there any discussion, Corey, of a variance that would only have a single strip instead of 2?
Yes, and I discussed that with the arborist here. Again, that wouldn't have been as much of a zoning issue as how it would impact the trees, and where the tree in question, Marco, if we could go to the survey. The tree that's towards the center of the yard is the main one that's going to be impacted, and it will be impacted by the first driving spot, not the second one. So even if we were to only allow one space versus the second, versus two spaces, it would be that first space that would have the most impact. And it's the 18-inch, it's actually 20 inches as measured from both arborists. I believe the tree has grown slightly.
Which tree is that? Is it the one in the center or the one
It's
on the east side?
on Country Club Drive there, you see the word sidewalk, and it's that 18-inch tree that's shown right there.
Okay.
To the further down to southwest of that, correct? That would be the area where a potential driveway would go. And the way that these are in the photos given as well, the roots have grown from that tree. They're going to be mostly impacted by that first spot, the first drive stall.
And then,
Bill, could I ask him a quick question? You referred a couple times to left and right trees. I just thought that would help us as we're talking about these. The left tree is the one from the, if you were standing on the street on our left, is that correct? And when you say
Correct.
right
From the
tree, you mean
survey,
the
it's
right
centered.
tree? Yeah, so that may help us in, as we're talking. Excuse me, Bill, thanks a lot.
Could I ask a question also, Bill? Do you mind? Do you mind?
that's great.
Bill's time, but he's relinquishing it. Go ahead.
I've had a lot of experience with these types of maple trees, and am I correct that these particular varieties of maple trees have roots that are very close to the surface? Is that right?
Yeah, yes, that tree in particular has several surface roots that spread to the left and even along the sidewalk, and they would all need to be cut and removed if it was.
That's what I thought, yeah. Okay, thank you for that information.
Going back to the tree that's further closer to the porch, they are proposing an extension on the porch, right, 3 feet towards the street. Is that going to have any impact on the roots of the tree on the right?
Well, I would say that that wasn't put in for today's variance request. That would be something that we would look at if that would impact those trees. But after the permit review, at this point, it was just decided that it would impact the 18-inch tree.
Yes. Yeah, no, yeah. When I did my review, I specifically did the review on the driveway.
Okay. Because I know frankly, the theme here is the impact on the trees from putting the driveway, and I'm wondering about, sort of addressing the entire proposal here, that there's no discussion about the impact of the extension of the porch on the tree roots, and I'm just trying to understand exactly what all the issues are that we're facing here.
Sure, perhaps the homeowner would be able to, but as far as our knowledge right now, that was not part of the discussion.
Thank you. And then you did mention the...
I'm happy to answer that.
We'll come to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, Corey, you mentioned about the drive strips. Could you sort of describe generally how much of an impact does that have? What's actually done when drive strips are put in?
Sure. I can go over just a bit of the construction, and then Mike can talk a little bit about how that may or may not impact the tree roots. But the drive strips, they generally go, they have to meet the 9 by 18, so they have to be that width by that length. We allow grass strip in the middle. It's a good way to retain for stormwater retention and for natural area in the front yards. But generally speaking, you can do concrete, you can do bricks, and or tile. There's different methods. But usually you want about 4 inches for smaller compact cars, sedans, 6 inches in thickness for larger vehicles, F-150s, 250s, heavier vehicles. And it's recommended that you have a stone base underneath that of about, again, 4 to 6 inches. So anywhere between 8 and 12 inches depth.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mike, are there roots already there? Is that what you were saying? Is that even with only having to do that, you're going to be impacting the roots?
Correct. Even doing the drive strips, you'd be cutting through the roots regardless, yes.
Those are my questions.
Okay, I'm going to go step into my questions here. Corey, 270-33, the encroachment on front yards, and it even said in your reports, we talked about it, you talked about it, but that in no way is in play here, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, because it said except residential. All right. If the person has the square footage necessary, for the parking spot, but they don't pave it, what's the big deal? Because I can't find anything other than the commercial side using the word paved. For residential, it's silent. If I mulched it, do I have a parking spot?
I gave a presentation to the Board of Commissioners. It must have been roughly 2 years ago. It was
Okay.
all on the materials of driveways. And I drove around, and it's the portion of code that you're looking for comes from Chapter 232 it's one of the last articles there. It might be Article 9 under curb cuts. And in it, it specifically states by off-street off-street driveways or off-street parking, minimum of 2 inches of concrete, asphalt, tar and chip, wood, or tile. And so you see a very wide assortment of driveways in Rehoboth. And using that section, it's not in the zoning code, but it is the only section of code where Rehoboth details any type of descriptions or numerical values of any kind for the driveways.
But I'm going to argue 270-30D contradicts that, right? Except for properties used in single-family dwellings, every parking space shall be connected to the street or an alley by a paved driveway. So I can interpret that to mean, okay, for R1, R2, that I may not need. In other words, what I'm trying to get at is if I have the space, it's there, and say I put a driveway cut, but in country club estates, you really don't need driveway cuts. We have a rounded curb. And maybe you put the piece of concrete between the sidewalk and the street to define it, get your yellow box, and be done with it. Or put mulch in there if you really wanted to. That's kind of point. I'm just saying when you get ambiguous points, I'm trying to understand, does it really mean that residential has to be paved as well?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. 270-30D was one that we actually discussed at a previous One Rehoboth meeting for this. And it's the takeaway from this is except for properties used for single-family dwellings,
Right.
And then everything that follows is what's the required other than single-family dwellings. And so one would be a paved driveway, which affords ingress and egress for a motor vehicle without requiring another motor vehicle to be moved. And hence the discussion on the lifts, vehicle lifts. And so this one here, this is one is the paved, which affords ingress and egress without the other car to be moved. So that's where we allow in tandem 2 parking spaces where in order to get the car out towards the further of the lot, you can park a car behind that one because it's for single-family dwellings.
Okay, but again, silent on materials other than some other section that
Correct.
we
Yeah, we
typically
do.
don't.
Yes.
Okay, we look at 99% of the time 270. Okay. Well, let me ask you flat out. If it was covered in mulch, would you be okay?
We have allowed that before, correct. Minimum of 2 inches, but that's Chapter 232.
Okay.
It doesn't make it very easy with snow removal.
Yeah. Well, the applicant has said that she's never going to park there. So, if I would argue it's mulch, it could also be grass. That's natural. So, that's just some of the things I'm trying to understand with this 270-30. Okay. And again, I just repeating myself, there is no setback issues. It's not encroaching in on the building space, right? Because I know there was a fence back there in the back. I saw you put a little note.
Oh, that was from the applicant. That was under, I believe, option A.
Yes.
For the tandem. That was there. However, I didn't include that in the report as that wasn't shown as any type of hardship.
But that's not
It
a
was only
problem.
the tree.
That's not a problem.
I would ask the homeowner may be able to speak to that, but
Okay.
I didn't treat that as a hardship as it wasn't assigned one with the variance request.
Okay. And, okay, all right. They were all my questions. Thanks, Corey. Edie?
Sure. Hey, Corey. Thanks again for an excellent report. You always make it so easy, much easier for us. I noticed you were saying something about this was a special application, a special exception on your first page. Could you define that for me, please?
That was, it came in as a special exception. It's a variance request.
Right.
I think the special exceptions are only reserved for when our code in Chapter 270 states that a special exception would be required. So I would treat that as although the box was checked as a special exception on the application, it's a variance.
So that was an owner error of sorts in choosing how she wanted to enter it. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay. And because I saw you'd been processed and publicly noticed as a variance, but I didn't know if your office did that for a reason or if it was a correction. I understand now. And also in the agenda, and maybe again, there's a small misprint here, the agenda was talking about 270-35D, and your building inspector report is talking about 270-74C. So those don't match in my mind, and I didn't know, again, if that's a typo somewhere or whatever, because the agenda says variance to City Code 270-35D.
Correct. So 270-35D is the number of spaces required. The public, it's been publicly noticed as a variance under 270-74C. That's the rules of procedure.
Oh, okay.
It's a procedural.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. Bill asked one of my questions, what about one parking space as prohibitive as two, and Mr. Lilly responded. There was a mention of that construction will be I wonder how will construction-related tree preservation be monitored? How is that monitored over time? As say a building, we grant a building permit, or a building permit is issued eventually anyway, and tree preservation is going to be an issue. How would that be monitored, that the trees were really taken care of? Does Mr. Lilly's department do that, or how's that done during the time of construction?
So before they get to the building permit, it goes through a zoning, a building, and a tree code review. If they disturb more than 500 square feet, then and it's a construction that, and it's for construction purposes, then a tree plan must be given. Okay. If there are any heritage trees on the property or within 10 feet of the property lines, an arborist report, a pre-construction arborist report has to be given. Mr. Lilly reviews that, and then on the, if they disturb more than 1,000 square feet, erosion sediment control plan is required. Tree protections there. So all those measurements are shown on paper, and once they comply, we issue the permit. Then during construction, Mr. Lilly will go out, the building inspectors will go out to inspect the construction.
Right.
But the arborist goes out and makes sure that the tree protection fencing is
that orange
there.
mesh.
Correct. The same that you see all over the city in various construction areas and whatnot.
I was just trying to understand, was it part and parcel of what you did once a building permit has been issued, or whether it's once again a shared responsibility? And that Mr. Lilly, that report that you will be giving later as the building permit is issued, is that different? That's different from what you did here, correct? There'll be the tree plan that will be reviewed that you just mentioned, or have I gotten confused a little bit?
So I don't personally do it's a third party that provides the arborist report. And then I compare that to the pre-demolition or pre-construction, whatever it is, to the post-construction or demolition.
Okay.
And if there's any damages or changes, then we're notified and then
Okay.
it goes.
And that includes any remediation, right, if you have smaller
Yes.
trees? Okay, so what you did with the report that you created for this hearing was specifically for this issue for us as support for the variance application, correct?
Yes.
And that will be a different one, okay?
Correct.
One point
Yes,
clarification, Edie. The report that was actually given was performed by the applicant's arborist.
Tyler Hammond.
Correct. Mr. Lilly reviewed that.
Okay.
And then the notes, the comments that he gave entered as under the report.
Right. I meant his comments. I'm sorry, I misstated. Because I know that. Thank you for the help, though. Another question for Michael Lilly. Are both trees very healthy now?
Yes, absolutely.
They're not in a Grove Park situation where everything seems fine, and I'm not making fun. I'm a tree person. I was on Parks and Shade Tree Commission before I joined this group. So I'm a tree person, but, you know, that's been kind of that, whoa, where did that come from, out of that sky? Because I'm wondering, which is obvious, are we spending a lot of time looking at perhaps one or both trees that might already be in a situation that are not as viable as perhaps they could be? And so I wanted to be sure that what we were looking at were healthy situations, so we're making the best decision we can make among ourselves. Please help me.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Both trees, per my inspection, both trees are completely healthy. They have a very vibrant canopy, no signs of disease, pests, infections, no cracks or anything. And that is verified also by Tyler Hammond's report.
Right, I
Both
saw that.
trees, yeah,
I saw that.
absolutely.
Okay. Let's see, I have questions for the applicant when she is available. I guess that's all that I have right now. Thank you both very much.
All right, thank you, Edie. Rick, any questions?
I don't have any further questions right now.
Okay, at this point, go ahead, Fred.
Just, Corey, if instead of lacking off-street parking, this dwelling was like 3 or 4 inches too close to the side yard setback, and the proposal to build an addition didn't aggravate the nonconformity, would you be able to permit the addition without a variance? Do you understand the question?
If the house were to be located where it would impact the possibility of having off-street parking, the house itself?
No, let's forget about off-street parking is an issue here because it's lacking, right? That's the only issue the property is non-conforming with respect to. But if instead of that, it was 6 inches too close to the side yard setback, and the addition that was proposed didn't go into the side yard setback, would you be able to permit it? The addition without a variance? In other words, would you
Not talking
require them
about
to bring,
parking?
you wouldn't require them to bring the house into compliance with?
No, and that comes directly from the nonconformity section. If it's a conforming use, which it would be, this happens all the time. You have a ground level, and some of it's in the setback. It happens a lot. But the homeowners want to build a second story. They can do that so long as the second story adheres to the zoning code.
But that principle does not apply here.
No, so all of what I mentioned before, apart from the zoning issue of the 2 off-street parking spaces, all other zoning aspects have been shown, at least to my understanding right now, to be compliant. When it comes to the addition, the side setback, or the setbacks, the floor area ratio, the elevations, and the lot coverage versus natural area.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Good, Mr. Townsend will swear you in.
Name and address for the record, Ms. Good.
Sorry.
Your name and address for the record,
Mary
please.
Good, 259 Country Club Drive.
You can pull
You
this.
can pull that
Yeah,
close.
so
Mary
you're-
Good.
So you're comfortable.
259 Country Club Drive, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Mrs. Good, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be truthful and, oh my gosh,
Nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth
Said it so many times, you can't say it again. You reach
in this
your-
proceeding? Yes.
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
Okay. I have a statement, and I just took the opportunity of making them for you, so you could follow along. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the staff. This has been a smooth process, and I greatly appreciate their help. I'd like to thank you for your time today and for your service to our community. I am requesting a variance from the city's requirement that I construct off-street parking as part of the renovation of my home. My request is straightforward. There is no reasonable location for a driveway on my property that would not put 2 mature heritage maple trees at significant risk. If those trees were not there, I would install the required driveway and would not be here before you today. But they are there. The canopies span virtually the entire 50-foot frontage of my property, and their large structural roots occupy the very areas in which a driveway would have to be constructed. For that reason, I respectfully ask the board to grant the minimum relief necessary and allow me to renovate my home without constructing a driveway. I'd like to start with what makes this property physically different from others in the neighborhood, because that's really the foundation of everything else I'm going to say. With me today is my certified arborist, Jay Ashby, sitting right here. Jay is a certified urban forest professional and chair of the Delaware Urban Forestry Council. The full listing of his credentials are listed on page 7 of your handout. Jay and his colleague, Tyler Hammond, who takes care of my trees on a regular basis, evaluated both heritage maples and their root systems. Their report concludes that construction of a driveway in the feasible locations on my property would require disturbance of significant structural roots. That damage could lead to the gradual decline or death of the trees or compromise their structural stability, increasing the possibility of failure during a major storm. Importantly, the city's own arborist has confirmed these findings. The materials I submitted illustrate the problem clearly. They include the arborist report and supplemental materials, the aerial photographs showing that the canopy of the 2 maples extend across virtually the entire frontage of the property, street-level photographs showing the size and importance of the trees to the property and streetscape, photographs of the large structural roots already visible above ground, the property survey identifying the location of the trees, and the conceptual plans evaluating different driveway configurations, including tandem and side-by-side parking. I did not begin with the assumption that a driveway was impossible. I examined the alternatives. Every feasible configuration requires construction within the tree's critical root areas. That is the central physical constraint presented by this property, and it's the reason I'm asking you to look closely at what's actually possible here, not just what's required by code. This risk is real and not theoretical. I also have firsthand experience with what can happen when major tree roots are disturbed during construction, and I think it's important for the board to hear it because it shows this isn't a hypothetical concern. When the property next to mine was redeveloped several years ago, construction activity severed roots approximately 7 feet to the left of the trunk of a large and healthy 60-foot canopy pine tree on my property.
Ms. Good, sorry to interrupt you. Is this the same material that was
Yes.
supplied? Okay, we all.
No, this is
Oh, can you
me-
go over what's
Yeah.
different than what was submitted? Just some,
Well,
is the whole report
this is just
different?
this is my statement of why I want the
Okay, so it is
variance.
different than what you
correct.
submitted? Okay,
Correct. And
I'm
I
sorry.
just provided that as a courtesy copy for
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. So again, when the property next to mine was redeveloped several years ago, construction activity severed roots approximately 7 feet to the left of the trunk of a large and healthy 60-foot canopy pine tree on my property. The tree subsequently fell onto my home while I was inside. Beyond the property damage to my roof and fence, I permanently lost a beautiful mature tree that had provided shade, privacy, and a home for many birds and mammals. It also forever changed the tree canopy to the left side of my house. That experience is directly relevant here because it demonstrates why disturbing structural roots cannot simply be treated as a temporary construction issue. Damage to a mature tree's root system can have consequences that appear later cannot be undone. And that's exactly the kind of unique property-specific circumstance I'm asking the board to weigh. I also want to be upfront that this application puts two things the city cares about into tension with each other, and I think that tension is worth naming directly. The city appropriately requires off-street parking in connection with certain renovations. At the same time, Rehoboth Beach's tree ordinance expressly seeks to preserve, protect, and conserve trees within the city and imposes special protection for heritage trees during construction. Ordinarily, those policies can coexist, but on this particular property, they cannot. Requiring a driveway would mean complying with one city objective by undertaking construction that threatens the trees, and the city's own tree protection policies are specifically intended to preserve. Granting this variance would reconcile those competing objectives in the manner that causes the least permanent harm. A driveway can be constructed later if the physical circumstances of this property ever change. A mature heritage maple that is seriously damaged or lost cannot be restored within our lifetime. I'd ask the board to keep that asymmetry in mind. It's really at the heart of why I believe this outcome serves the public interest. It's also worth pausing on why these two trees matter beyond my own property line, because this isn't just a personal request. I think there is a real public benefit at stake. The trees are not simply landscaping. They are mature canopy trees that contribute to the character of Country Club Drive and to the city's larger urban forest. They provide shade, wildlife habitat, stormwater benefits, cooling, and environmental value. They also help preserve the scale and landscape character of one of the neighborhood's remaining older cottages. As the city arborist report points out, the silver maple on the right of the property is one of the largest specimens of silver maple in the city of Rehoboth. Their importance is visible not only from my property, but from the street. Preserving them therefore benefits more than one homeowner, which is part of why I believe granting this variance serves the broader public interest, not just my own. Conversely, not granting the variance would be contrary to public interest. This point is made by all 6 neighbors who submitted letters to the city regarding their interest in saving these magnificent trees. I also want to be clear about the scope of what I'm asking for because it matters that this request is narrow. I'm not asking for additional lot coverage or setback relief. I'm not seeking permission to construct a larger house because of the variance. I'm only asking to be excused from constructing the required off-street parking because the unique existing physical conditions of this particular property make doing so harmful to 2 protected trees. The condition giving rise to this request is therefore not financial, and it's not simply a matter of personal preference. It arises from the physical characteristics of the property itself. I also want to address head-on whether this creates a parking problem for the neighborhood, because I know that's a real concern for the board, and the evidence here is reassuring. This home has existed without a driveway for more than 60 years. I have owned the property since 2000, and during that time, there has never been a parking problem associated with the property. Parking availability on this portion of Country Club Drive is generally good. 6 neighboring property owners, including neighbors on both sides of my home and directly across the street, have submitted letters describing their firsthand experience with parking in this area. They confirm that granting this variance would not create a parking problem or adversely affect the neighborhood. As previously mentioned, their letters also support preserving the mature trees as important features of our community. That observation is also consistent with a point made during the city's recent charrettes. Differing neighborhoods within Rehoboth Beach face different conditions and challenges. Our part of Country Club Drive certainly has challenges. A shortage of parking is not one of them. So I don't believe granting this relief changes the essential character of the neighborhood in any way. I also thought it was important to ask myself whether granting this variance would open the door to a flood of similar requests. So I looked into it. I conducted an informal review of properties in Country Club Estates neighborhood that do not presently have driveways, as well as the few remaining vacant lots. Most properties either already have driveways or appear capable of accommodating them without confronting the circumstances presented here. Among the small number of properties without driveways, only one appears to have a concentration of mature trees that might present a remotely comparable issue. My survey isn't intended to be a formal inventory. Its purpose is simply to make one point clear. The circumstances before you are unusual. This request depends on a very specific combination of conditions: an existing home without a driveway, 2 mature heritage trees, documented structural roots in the areas available for parking, and professional arborist finding confirmed by the city's own arborist that driveway construction would threaten those trees. Granting relief based on those particular facts would not establish a general exemption from the city's parking requirements. It would simply recognize that this property specifically doesn't fit the standard pattern. Finally, I think the nature of my renovation itself says something about how this request fits within the spirit of the city's ordinances, not just the letter of them. I am not demolishing this home and replacing it with a substantially larger house. I am preserving one of the neighborhood's remaining original country club estates cottages and making thoughtful improvements so it can continue to be a well-maintained home for years to come. And that same preservation principle is at the heart of my request concerning these trees. I'm trying to improve the property without unnecessarily destroying the features that give it much of its character. The request wasn't created by anything I did. It comes from the property as it already exists. So I'd ask the board to think about this ultimately as a question of proportionality. On one side is the driveway requirement that has, on this particular property, has not been shown to address an existing parking problem. On the other side are 2 mature heritage maple trees whose structural roots occupy the only reasonable locations for that driveway, whose importance is recognized by the city's own tree protection policies, and whose potential injury has been documented by both my arborist and the city arborist. The consequences are also very different. The absence of a driveway is reversible. The loss of 2 heritage trees is not. I respectfully submit that the unique physical characteristics of this property justify the limited relief I am requesting, that the variance is the minimum relief necessary, that it will not adversely affect parking, and that granting it will allow the city to accommodate a reasonable renovation while preserving the heritage trees that its ordinances are designed to protect. For these reasons, I respectfully request the board grant my application. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll ask some questions. Rick, I'll start with you if you have any questions.
First of all, I want to thank you for that very insightful and informative presentation. I think it's important for people to understand that we do have conflicts among our various code provisions, and I feel that we need to weigh them appropriately to determine, what's more important to us. I don't have any questions for you. I may want to go back and ask Corey a question just to clarify something.
Thank you, Rick. Edie, any questions?
I'm going to be following up on something Bill brought up earlier with when he was speaking to the city representatives. Looking at the, Marco, could you go back to that drawing that has the 2 trees on it, so we see left and right again, please, yes, please, that one. On this drawing, and Bill mentioned this earlier, it was one of my questions, you have a covered porch, and if you go to I think it's the previous one, Marco, could you back up the previous drawing also? Or maybe it's the next one, I'm sorry, excuse me. I think it's the next one after that. The next after that, it's after the tree one. Okay. Yeah, where the addition, that's the one, please. That's, these aren't labeled with a specific, where it says potential tandem spaces. Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to get to is not the parking space issue, but I'm getting to the proposed screen porch addition. So this doesn't have clear measurements for me to understand how far out you're going from your existing porch and coming out farther.
It looks like it's 3 feet.
3 feet beyond. But the other thing now, if you can back up just one and go back to the trees, please. It's just one page, I think. Yes, please. As I was going over everything, I was looking at all the arborists' comments about the CRZ, the critical root zone, which they say is approximately 1 foot per inch of the DBH. So that means that the left tree would need 20 feet. That's where its critical root zone is. Is that correct? Am I correct here, Michael Liddy? Is that right? Yeah. So the left tree, again, it's the one that's, as we're standing in the block and looking, since it's a 20-foot, it would require, or 20-inch, it would require 20 feet to maintain its critical root zone. So those aren't really measured on the drawing at all. But if it looks like the distance from the sidewalk or the property line back to the porch that exists, it looks to be 25 feet? Is that what that says? It's very, I always bring one of these to every meeting because it's almost impossible to read some of this stuff.
Looks like it's 22
25
feet,
point-
22 feet, I thought.
On this one, though, I think it says 25.2. The other one says 22 or something.
Yeah, I think it's 25 to the old porch and 22 to the new
Yeah,
porch.
yeah,
There's a
right.
3-foot
Yeah,
difference.
thanks, Bill. Thanks a lot, Bill. So if that's 25 feet, I say, then probably the left tree is a quarter of the way from the sidewalk, so it's 5-6 feet. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm measuring back toward the house. So it would need 20 feet clearance, correct? To keep the root zone
Yes.
approximately.
Majority, yeah.
I know it isn't exactly going to be clear. We'd love to keep it that clear, right?
Yes.
And the more we can keep of it, the better we're going to be. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, so it looks like the critical root zone for the left tree goes just about to where the existing porch is, back and around. And of course, it's a circumference, so it goes all the way around. But then the greater concern here then is the right tree, which we're calling 28 inches, right? DBH, right? So that needs 28 feet. And my eye tells me that's about halfway from the property line. So that's at about 12 feet there. So 28 feet, the critical root zone is already under the porch, right? I mean, and they want to add 3 more feet to the existing porch. Am I right here, or?
Edie, I would allow the arborist to speak as far as the roots go, but I want to point out that that tree and the extension of the porch is of a different variety. The extension of the porch would be zoning compliant, and during plan review, if the arborist would determine that he didn't want that tree to come out, the appropriate path for the applicant would then be to appeal that decision to have the porch through the Park and Shade Tree Commission.
Okay. You understand what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to draw a circle around each tree and say, where is its critical root zone? And are we truly looking at that carefully? So that's what I was trying to do here.
So the good news for you, Edie, is that there is a path. Your concern here, which is not part of our variance, but there is a path, so be it,
Right.
with the tree commission.
Right.
Okay.
So that's all that I have at this point.
Okay.
For the applicant.
Did you want to ask that question of the property owner, or was that? No. Okay, that was just, all right, sorry.
Not at this
Okay. Ms. Good, do you agree that there is sufficient space for 2 parking spots on the land as you're drawing?
I mean, this is what my designer drew.
Okay,
And
and do you agree? I'm just
I
asking,
mean,
do you
I
agree
think
with
it's
it?
awfully tight, that it would be tight.
Okay.
But it's feasible to do it, as you can see in the
Okay.
drawing.
And the back of the second tandem spot, there's a fence. Are you removing that fence during construction, I would imagine?
I think it depends on whether whether I'm granted the variance, whether I have to redo my plan. If I'm granted the variance, I would not be changing the fence.
Okay. And as far as your application, you marked down special exception. Corey corrected it. I want to make sure you agree with Corey's report.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
well,
me
okay.
trying to figure things out on my own.
Okay, no, that's okay.
Not easy, is it?
That's okay.
No,
No.
it's not.
Okay, they were all my questions. Bill?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, and I'm going to ask again, anyone in the audience wish to speak? I just have a question. You come up to the microphone, please, and introduce yourself, yeah. And Fred will,
Attempt to swear you
Hi,
in.
I'm Jeannie Polrice. I live on Munson, around the corner.
Could I hear your last name again?
Polrice, Polries.
Ms. Paul Rice, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may continue.
I just have a question. If I don't live across the street, so it really doesn't impact me. One of the questions I was having was, and you kind of answered that, was would this be setting precedent for future no driveways? But if the variance is granted, and then you sell or you decide to tear down, does that variance go away, or does it stay with the property?
it stays with the property forever.
Forever.
So then someone could come down, tear it down, build something without using that coverage space.
That is, we have to take that into consideration
Okay,
forever.
that's my question.
We're here to protect the land.
Right.
We sit between the city and the applicant, so that's one of our focus.
That was my only question,
All right.
because I have some, going future, so.
Okay.
All
Now what we do, we can put conditions on approval, if this, and, we can add those things to carry with the land. If the
Okay.
trees die, you can go down that path.
And then I guess one other question I had was, what is the lifespan of these trees? I know that they're huge, and I rode by and I looked, and it's,
I did Google AI on this.
okay,
I thought 100, you correct me, 150 years?
They can reach.
Yeah.
okay, so they have a long life ahead, hopefully.
So I trusted AI there.
Well, yeah, all right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to close down the public portion of the meeting and open the discussion amongst the board members. And I'll see anyone wants to start off. Go ahead, Rick.
Is it okay if I ask a question, clarification from Corey?
Absolutely.
And I thank the chair for, his due diligence in discovering that there is something other than, concrete or solid pavers that could be used to create strips. But it's clear that there are major surface roots to the tree next to where even the tandem parking would have to go. Corey, if I heard you correctly, you said that even with mulch, it had to be at a depth of at least 2 inches. Is that correct?
Correct. I pulled the section out, and it comes from 232-58 under the curb cut. If any curb cut or part of this is 232-59, which is a permit required. And under that, for the purposes of this article, a hard-surfaced parking space shall mean and include a parking space with 2 inches of stone or surface paved with tar and chip, concrete or blacktop material, or being of brick, tile, or wood. And so that is what the city has had to rely on for the hard surface parking space.
Okay, then maybe the next clarification I'd like is from the arborist. In order to substitute mulch at a depth of 2 inches, would it be necessary to disturb those surface roots? If they're, I haven't looked at them, but my experience is they oftentimes, are above ground. So would they have to be cut into in order to get a 2-inch depth?
Yes, if you were to cut them, you could get to that, or you could simply hand dig around them and leave the roots where they are and backfill with your 2 inches of mulch.
Which isn't very practical in my view for a driveway. Okay. I don't know, I think my views are fairly clear on, when where I see inconsistencies in our code that really pose a significant dilemma to our property owners. And in my mind, we sort of have to decide, is it more important to have 2 off-street parking spaces where there has not been 2 off-street parking spaces for decades? Or is it more important to preserve our tree canopy wherever possible? And that's a balancing act that, I feel that the Board of Adjustment has a responsibility to take into consideration when viewing applications of this nature. As a matter of fact, even before Ms. Wood's statement, I mean, one of the things that struck me was this inconsistency, and how are we possibly going to bring them, together? I don't think there is a way to bring them together. My take on this is that we should grant the variance because I believe that what's been said here today clearly demonstrates that we can meet at least the majority of the quick check tests, and at least preserve these trees, and that we're really not going to be, it's not inconsistent with the surroundings. It's definitely not going to result in any adverse, condition for the neighboring properties. The neighbors have said parking's not a problem on the street. I know parking is a problem in the city, but again, it comes down to a balancing act, and that's the perspective that I am coming at this issue from. So that's my views.
Thank you, Rick. Edie, some
Yep.
thoughts?
Sure. First, I'd like to zero in on what I think the issue is. The issue is, and I have a combo view. You said neither one. I have a combo view of how can we preserve the trees and not create a variance forever on this property, no matter what happens. I think that's where my head is. But zeroing in, to go back to that point, I don't think whether there's parking available all on the street or there's no parking available on the street in general has anything to do with our decision. We're not deciding whether we need parking because there's not enough or there's too much or I think I'm glad for them because a lot of us don't live in a place where parking is is open. But in any case, I don't think that has anything at all to do with our decision. Our decision is, do we want to preserve the trees? To me, this is what it means. How do we do that without creating a lifetime forever and ever and ever variance for that property, no matter what somebody does many years from now? So I'd like to take that part off the table, although it's very nice that people told us about that they didn't have problems parking. That's great. So then I come back to how do we do that? I think we can grant the variance with conditions, but as always, what are our conditions? It could be the death of one of the trees or both of them, or one tree at a time. Because in essence, what we're saying, if we're looking at this drawing up here, the left tree is the one that's most impinging the driveway position that they're talking about today. It might not be with the driveway position in the future, but.
Could you simply tie the approval, the condition upon an application for tree removal? Well,
Maybe that's-
yeah.
maybe
'cause-
that's perfect,
'cause
Barry.
She may want to take it out while it's still alive.
Yeah,
Heaven forbid.
it may get that.
It
might get a disease.
If a permit is approved for tree removal, then the variance should go away.
Well, that's that.
I think that's quite possible.
go with
That's-
that, yeah.
Is that in? But I think it's more than just a tree removal. I think a condition should also go to the issue of if that tree dies of natural causes. I don't know how the arborist would prefer to see this written. I wouldn't want someone to specifically damage the tree or something with a spike to get it to die.
Yeah, well, but
But if it dies, in the ordinary course of its lifespan for any reason, then also the variance would go away.
Yeah.
I think I'd also do it just as Ms. Good was talking about. I think any increase on FAR of the house, so that if somebody comes
Right,
in and wants
right.
to add a second story to it, you know, then it undoes exactly what the whole purpose of today's hearing is, which is preserving the cottage. So I think it's not just simply the tree, but frankly, if, if we could add, 5% or something to existing FAR, but if somebody wants to come in and knock that house down or
Right.
add a second story to it,
Right.
I don't think that's what we have in mind here.
No.
Right.
Bill, isn't the proposed renovations or additions going to increase FAR?
It increases ground coverage because I know she's got putting a pool in, and so I'm talking about, and I haven't even thought about it, so whatever you guys come up with, but I think it's more than just the trees. I think it's a matter that if somebody wants to fundamentally change the nature of what she has there, then that's not what we're approving today.
Yep. Right.
And we've got to have language that says that, and that's the hard part here. Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm not quite sure where the city weighs in legally on this. May I?
Yeah,
Or-
sure.
Several concerns. The what ifs, and then the what happens. So the trees removed, is the homeowner then responsible for immediately putting in a driveway? That seems complicated and probably not appropriate given what may or may not have occurred through the construction of her present plan. Understanding that you all, stay with the property, that certainly makes sense. But again, putting conditions that the city would then have to,
Monitor.
yes, that, again, you know me.
Right.
Don't love conditions only because I'm not sure we're able or in a position
track.
to either enforce. So again, I appreciate the needs and the interest, but that puts the city in a very difficult position.
Yeah, but would that apply to what I was suggesting? If somebody's coming back in for a permit a building permit to increase the size of the house,
If the trees are still in place,
I would want, if somebody wants to come in and double the size of the house, I want them to come back to the BOA and convince them that they don't need a parking permit, parking spaces, period.
well, but I don't know that we would be, again, all hypotheticals, and forgive me, I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm simply saying that when it comes to us, if it is compliant, we would not be in a position to say no, and that's where the trees come in. That's always the difficulty. If an individual comes in and wants to build a house that is compliant on a particular lot.
But it's not going to be compliant because at least where I was going was Fred's comment of 20 minutes ago, which is, if there are other permitted noncompliance that exists, you come in and you want to make a change, then that's why she's here today. She didn't have to put a driveway in if she hadn't made the changes. Somebody wants to come back in and wants to materially change the house, however we want to define it. I don't believe that if I vote to approve what she wants today, I'm not, in my view, should not be approving that somebody can double the size of the house and not put in parking. The whole idea here is she's doing minimal changes to maintain a cottage. Somebody wants to come in and just what people were talking about 20 minutes ago, which is take advantage of the lady from Munson Street saying, take advantage of the fact, gee, I don't have to put parking in because Ms. Good 20 years ago got this waiver. That's not what we're doing here today. So I understand that you don't want to be in a situation of having drive around to see whether the trees are still there, even though they're great trees. But I would think in the file granting the variance, if we said this variance is granted contingent upon not increasing either the lot coverage or the FAR that exists after her construction that Corey's otherwise approving,
May I
that's
ask-
a knowable.
Yes, but if I may, the issue, the reason that Ms. Good is here is because of the trees. And so, again, we would go back to the trees at the next point, not the FAR or any of the other issues of somebody wanting to build a much bigger house. Are the trees still there? Do the trees still present the same problem that they presented now? If they do, we're right back where we started.
No, but the trees aren't presenting a problem.
Right.
The trees are
No,
this
the
good, and everybody here wants to preserve the trees.
Exactly. They're not presenting a problem, but they cannot build the driveway to protect the trees. If that condition, if that issue still remains, when another person comes in to say, I would like to build a bigger house, that's the issue that we're solving for. The
Actually, I'm not.
protection of the tree.
No.
Okay.
No,
I
we're not
think
solving
we're
for
almost
that.
in
Okay.
agreement here. I mean, Corey,
We're not solving for that.
you have used the term before, a triggering event. So there's not everyone every 5 minutes going, do I need to check? Do I need to check? No, right? Somewhere in Rehoboth Beach, the files, every property, there's going to be a file where you would look, is there a variance? 30 years from now, someone puts in an application to build, check for variances. Oh, wait a minute. Are the trees still alive? So you're checking once every 30 years whenever that comes in. It's not, I think are we all kind of, I think we're in agreement, trying to just say it a different way.
Well, I think, just, if I could just ask Corey, I mean, if someone came in with a building permit to demolish the existing home and to build another home, whatever size it was, it really wouldn't matter. As part of your review process, you go out to the property, right, and determine, what's there. I mean, particularly after you look into the records and see that there's a variance relating to driveways.
Right.
And if the trees are still there, then I would assume your conclusion would be, oh, there's a variance here, and this property does not need a driveway. On the other hand, if the tree had died or had been previously taken down pursuant to a clearance from, the Park and Shade Tree Commission, then that person would then have to put in a driveway. I mean, it's a subsequent event,
A triggering event,
triggering event.
yeah.
And I'm going to throw in another small wrinkle. We keep saying trees, trees, trees. These trees, there could be one tree gone, not both of them. And so again, I'm complicating us, I know, but I'm the detail crazy person. So, but the one that's really in the way of morally, so to speak, the way the owner presents it, and I don't think you're wrong, to put in the driveway is the one on the left. That's the one that's most, it seems, in the way of putting in the driveway.
Unless they want to do side by side instead of a tandem.
Right, but they said that according to the application, their preferred choice, if it was going to happen, was the tandem.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure even if we put conditions, we have to be careful about what we're saying and not say trees, because it may be a difference between which one might be gone and which one might not be.
Someone want to try a motion and then we can thin it down?
So, real quick before we
Yes,
do that.
please.
Yeah.
There seems to be some desire to impose a condition that's based on a triggering event. I would throw in with the city's point of view, though, that with respect to like the loss of the tree, if that tree comes down, I don't think that should trigger an obligation for the owner to build a driveway that's not there now. So I don't think that is an appropriate triggering event. I understand the logic behind it, but I don't think the city should be responsible for monitoring the presence of the tree and, okay, good.
So how do we word it so that some future homeowner comes in, Corey checks, you'll be here 30 years, 40 years from now?
It's like giving him a sentence. Exactly. 30 years at hard labor.
Do you have any record, and how would you like to see it?
If I may, the triggering event is under our current code right now, and of course that may change, but 270-29 is the applicability of the article. And so the triggering events it lays out in letters A and B, when any new structure is erected, whenever an existing structure has 75% or more internal alterations, or whenever any existing structure has an increase in size. The structure is increased in size, gross floor area. So those three off of the 270-29 are the triggering events we have currently.
That satisfies Bill's position. So,
I like where Bill was going
Yeah.
with all this.
so should a motion be made referencing 270-29 that would be the triggering event that would then check the condition? If gone, parking spaces are required. If
Which,
not
both,
gone,
both of them or one of them? I mean, what are we, I'm really not trying to be a total pain, but,
Just compliance with the parking, whatever, the parking standards could change in the future. They could be
Right.
different, but they'd have, if there was a triggering event, they'd have to.
to review the parking situation.
I would say
Have to just be
both.
compliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I don't mean to be, I'm really not trying to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but that exists in code. So that exists regardless whether you put a condition or not. So if something were to occur,
That's true, but how do you override the variance?
You can't override the variance with that.
no, what I'm saying is, when you keep, these conditions exist. What you're saying is a condition actually exists. So nobody, regardless of your condition, could come in
Okay.
and do those things without. So I think the variance, as you say, stays with the property.
Right, but we don't want it to if that condition is
No,
met.
but what I'm saying, the statute exists regardless. So if
Yes.
somebody comes in, regardless of what you do right now, meaning condition in a variance.
Right.
That will be a condition. They will not be able to get past any of those factors.
But does the variance override that? I don't know why we're putting you, Mike, but I'm
Mike.
sorry.
It-
I'm trying to say,
Lisa's saying it wouldn't. I think
No.
you're saying that the condition that we'd like to impose is a state of the law.
Yes.
And then, we got a question from the audience, does this live forever? What kind of precedent does this set? And then this is kind of a natural reaction from the board to place some limits on it. And so, I mean, I think that the notice of decision could certainly have language in it that makes reference to the board being content. And I can't speak for the board. The board might want to see that language expressed as a condition. One of the conditions is, I presume, that it would authorize the proposed additions that are reflected in the application. I hope everybody's okay with that.
As Corey spells them out in the bottom of the building inspector's report, yes, as we do with the exact language. But in addition, I think if you craft the narrative such that it explains the factual circumstance, you have in fact put it into a box, so to speak. There are these trees, they are this age, they are this healthy, they are here, their root structure is such, and that would be then, I think, as Ms. Good has said, I've ridden around town and I don't see it anywhere else. Again, I'm just hesitant to put conditions on the city which we cannot enforce and cannot impose.
but we have put other I'm not, come on.
Yeah.
We have put other conditions on. I'm simply asking to follow along what Bill is saying, that something in, maybe it's the NOD, well, it would be in the motion that simply says, at some future point, I respect for what we had the comment in the back, I don't want this to go on forever.
Right.
If both, I'm going to say both trees die. If both trees die or gone, not,
And a triggering event occurs.
and a triggering event occurs, so it's an and condition, and a triggering event occurs, that'll be in the records, and we'll say, okay, no, you got to put the parking spots in. So it's tied to 270-29.
And both trees would have to be gone.
I would
in
say
your
both.
view.
I would say both.
And that one has three, remember, it isn't just one tree, if I'm remembering, is that correct? Per se, I mean, you're calling it one tree, but it has three base, right? It has three base
Correct, it's a
Yeah.
single trunk,
trunk.
multi-stem,
It has-
yes.
Right, multi-stem, right. But the one on the left is a single trunk, single stem.
Correct.
Right, right, that's what I thought I read.
Anyone want to take a stab at the motion?
I think he's drafting one.
He types fast. Are you working on it, Rick?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, I wasn't writing a
Would
love
it,
letter to
Okay.
would
anybody.
it be something to tie to the sale of the property?
No,
Sale or
that
transfer?
doesn't work.
Transfer?
would-
I'm
I
just,
would-
I'm
yeah.
throwing things out here to try to say what would,
I'm just trying
That would
to,
not be a trigger.
I'm just trying to say, what brings something back in front of the building inspectors?
right.
Eyes.
right. That's the bottom line.
And when they do their survey site, boom, hey, gone, records show, both trees gone, this variance is over.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Not that the city has to check.
Right.
Can I just throw out for consideration and discussion?
Please.
A proviso to a motion which would be to approve, provided, however, in the event the existing subject trees as of the date hereof no longer exist and a triggering event occurs pursuant to section 270-29, is that right, Corey?
Correct.
Okay. Or any successor thereto, this variance shall expire.
Simple
Simple as that.
Simple as that. I think that works.
And again, not to be a nitpicker, but I always am, can a stump exist?
This is,
What does it mean? Does it have to be a live tree? I mean,
in the event-
I'm asking, I just,
I know.
I
Yeah, no,
ask every
yeah.
question I think of, and then we decide whether it's worth anything.
I think we would leave it to the city to issue or not
Okay.
issue the building permit. And if the city withheld a building permit and the applicant wanted to say, well, there's a stump there, then they'd have to come to us and make that argument.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
is that,
I love my stump, right?
it would fail. Yeah.
get off my
Yeah,
stump.
I'm just to prove your point, yeah.
18, get off my stump, all right.
Okay. I get a second on Rick's motion. You want Rick to
I'll
repeat
second.
it? You want him
Oh,
to repeat
no,
it?
read it again, please.
You want me to start with the whole motion?
The half.
Just a half? Okay. I move that we approve the request for a variance pursuant to section 270-35D1 of the zoning code, pursuant to application, or case number 0726-05, provided, however, in the event the existing subject trees as of the date hereof no longer exist and a triggering event occurs pursuant to section 270.29 or any successor thereto, this variance shall expire.
Get a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. And let's go start with you, Rick, since you were nice enough to put this motion together and apply it against the 4 quick check factors, please.
Sure. Well, I vote to approve because I believe that based on the evidence here that the requested variance, is in keeping with the nature of the zone, and it preserves significant canopy trees in the city. By doing so, it is also consistent with the character and uses of the immediate vicinity, which is a residential community. The statements also clearly, especially those of Ms. Wood, clearly show that there is no impact on the neighboring properties. If this variance were to be granted and it maintains the status quo of what has existed for decades, I believe that there is an unnecessary hardship or an exceptional practical difficulty by the existence of these trees, which can only be preserved by granting the variance and not requiring a driveway to be included on the property, which would require significant intervention in the area of the root system of these trees. And I believe that notwithstanding the fact that there is an inconsistency in our code between preservation of trees and the requirement to have at least 2 off-street parking areas on a residential property, that is nevertheless in the public good and the zoning intent to preserve the trees.
Thank you, Rick. Edie?
I vote to approve. The nature of the zone is not an issue. The character and use of the immediate vicinity is not an issue here. Keeping the trees is certainly part of that. Removing the restriction on their property would seriously affect neighboring properties. I think removing big trees, unless we absolutely have to in this city, affects our whole city. So it's not only their neighborhood. I think we don't want to do that unless we absolutely have to anywhere in this beautiful city. And criteria 4 is similar, I feel that way. I don't know if the owner has an exceptional practical difficulty. She does if she wants to build a driveway, but I think the city has exceptional practical difficulty, or something like that by not preserving as many of its wonderful trees as it can. So I vote to approve.
Thank you, Edie. Bill?
I support as well. I agree with my colleagues. I think all 4 quick check factors have been met. I actually think the exceptional practical difficulty of the trees. We've given variances because of water runoff and other natural things that are of far less appeal than the trees here. So I think actually the exceptional practical difficulty is maintaining the trees, and so I support the variance.
Thank you, Bill. And I, too, vote to approve. And exactly what Bill said. I think the hardship here is on the city. It's really not, an issue here. What if Ms. Goodkeeman said, I want to put these parking spots in? Well, we would probably lose 1 to 2 trees. So I think the hardship is actually on the city. So I think all quick check factors have been met. So this is approved. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Anyone need a break, or you could? All right, let's roll in to our next agenda item. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, Mike, you have to stay. You have to stay in here.
Corey didn't tell you that?
We want your view on 16-foot wide.
Yeah, right, he has a sentence. Thank you thanks for helping us out.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate that.
Give me 1 second.
Take your time, Vince.
We'll take too long. We all
He's
set?
back.
Corey, do you want to wait for Lisa, or are we good to get started?
I think we're good. I just think an important question would be to ask Vince if they're going to be taking over the fireworks for us as well.
Oh, I know, that still comes up, yeah. I remember when we first presented this, and I thought, that's great,
right.
there's fireworks, and there's 10 people on the boardwalk,
That's right.
I didn't even realize that.
I just rewatched that whole thing from April 24th, 2023.
23, all right.
2023.
Tell.
3.5 hours of,
Hopefully, this won't
or
be.
something.
three
That
and
was
a
the
half
longest
hours.
meeting
Was
we've
that the night we
ever
were here
had.
till like 9 o'clock? I think that
don't
night.
It was
know.
about a 6.5
Yeah.
hour board because we had three things, and the egg came after it.
That's right, yeah.
There were,
All right, we're going to turn this case number 2, case number 0726-06, we'll turn it over to Corey.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Again, with my reports, I will attempt to just go over briefly what it says. It's been embedded. I do have Exhibit A where I have the floor plans that have been marked up with my comments. A bit of history before I go into the actual variance request here. This property was approved recently for a second minor amendment. I want to make it very clear, though, that the drawings and the plans shown before you today are different from that minor amendment.
And approved where at Planning Commission,
By
right?
the Planning Commission, correct. In addition to that, and this is detailed, all of this is detailed under the application background. And also, so that was the minor amendment number 2. And that was approved by the Planning Commission at its April 24th, 2026 meeting. And also, case number 0822-10, The property currently has a former variance as well for the FAR. That's been included in my report. But what's before you today, we're staying with the same section of code, moving from 27030D to 27030B. And this is the applicant is seeking dimensional relief for the minimum 24-foot circulation and turning aisle width for a single ground floor connector segment within the proposed parking structure. And at any time, we can pull this up on the screens to view.
And we're going to explain that as well, so, yeah.
So the first one in the analysis under number 1, staff just goes over the applicability of 27030B to the connector segment. I believe there are arguments to be made whether this is, as this turning segment, this connector segment doesn't service actual parking stalls as you would normally think, but staff is treating the 24-foot minimum still required as that is the practice and the procedure that has already taken place throughout the One Rehoboth as well as the Bellhaven Hotel during those reviews. So we're simply applying the same review under this application.
So just, I
for the
want to make
variance
sure
today.
that we all understand, the segments that they're talking about being less than 24 do not have stalls next to them, is that correct?
That is correct.
So when they're driving by, there are not cars that are parked perpendicular or even parallel to the connector. It's just walls.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And staff put this in, and Vince can also,
Yeah, 20-1, right, shows that.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Corey,
staff-
Could I just ask a quick question? All of that being the case, what is the definition of a circulation and turning aisle? It seems to be as though that's not what we're talking about.
We're not, but the reason I'm bringing that up is in the application, the applicant has two things that they're saying. One is that it shouldn't apply to this segment, and the second one is the variance request. So number 1 is that staff is affirmatively saying in the report that the 24 feet, whether we label it as a connector segment, a drive aisle, or anything else, that the 24 feet apply. That is the method that we've used consistently throughout all other site
You're
plans.
saying that for consistency's sake. This is
Correct.
what you have used in the past.
Correct. So
But
this
if we
is,
were to say that this isn't a circulation and turning aisle, doesn't the rest of it go away?
well, so that would, that's certainly what the applicant will, it can say, that's what the application said. Staff is just saying in the report that it views it to be treated the same as the 24-foot turning aisle has been treated even with these connector segments in other versions of plans that have come in through site plan review.
Sorry.
Okay, continue, please.
Is there an appeal in the application?
There's not, because we hadn't submitted a plan to get denied, but that was an argument that we made. It was sort of in the alternative, it doesn't apply, or because of the ambiguity in it, that mitigates towards granting the variance, either way, so.
Okay, so the number 2 is just the staff verified geometry of it, and this is in BI Exhibit A. The actual length of the segment that restricts the width from 24 feet to 16 feet is approximately 38 feet long, but there's an additional 11 feet 9 inches plus or minus where we just asked that the applicant walk us through today if the ramp is still going up, but the actual wall has terminated, if that vertical clearance may or may not impact the width. So what you see in the report is stating that 38 feet plus 11 feet 9 inches puts it just under 50 feet, which may be impacted.
Okay.
That's the number 2.
Corey, may I ask, did your staff make a determination whether that there was a problem with the remaining 11.75 feet?
No, again, that's where you can
Where
tell
we've
on the
got it.
plans where the 2 parking stalls, they don't begin until roughly 11 feet, 9 inches after that wall terminates. And then you have, those are the closest parking stalls to that area that may be impacted if that ramp is still
are you
impacting the vertical clearance.
Jumping in on that, because I noticed that too, but are you talking width there between the ramp, concrete sidewall, and we'll get this, I guess, when we get into the diagrams, or did you, in the report, say height? Is there a problem with the height as well? At the top of the ramp clearing?
No,
There's
and
no
this
problem
report
there.
doesn't go into any of the height, as
Okay,
that's not,
it's-
this is just the width, and
Okay.
as the ramp goes up, it may
That's what I
impact the
thought.
width.
Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's, those are items 1 and 2. Item number, again, in the analysis, item number 1 is why we believe that 24 feet should still matter for consistency. Item number 2 is the calculations. Item number 3 is the floor area ratio. And this is just verified. You can see in BI Exhibit A, crunch the numbers. Under the variance, 2.76 was given. The applicant arrived at 2.5, staff arrived at 2.49. It's a tolerance of 144 square feet, and over 4 areas in the schematic drawings like this, that's fairly reasonable to be expected. But just to put that in the report, that the calculations put it well under the existing variance for the FAR. There's no relief requested for off-street parking. This is just to let the BOA know. Under the new plans, they moved from 60 rooms to 48 rooms. They're showing 50, which is compliant with the off-street parking codes. So in conclusion, staff has identified, and let me put one more thing on the record here. This is on page 4, just construction code context. Separate from the zoning requirements, staff reviewed the applicable provisions of the city's adopted 2018 IBC and ICC A117-1 2017 and identified those regulations and identified no separate minimum vehicle ramp width comparable to the 24-foot zoning standard. Other building code requirements, including applicable vertical clearances and accessibility requirements, remain subject to construction plan review, as well as all other third-party agencies. And so I wanted to just put that out there, that as far as the adopted building codes, there is nothing in there that, of our adopted codes, as far as width goes with these connector segments, that would require 24 feet is simply a zoning requirement.
Okay, so just to clarify, because we did get a letter against this, stating that we're not following state and federal. So your team did verify this against state and federal?
No, and quite frankly, we wouldn't be able to at this point.
Okay.
This is a schematic drawing, cut sheets for zoning purposes only, specifically under the scope of this one connector segment, 38-foot long for the 24-foot width reduction to 16 feet.
Okay.
This in no way, the variance request would in no way impair or illegitimize any requirements, whether it be through the city's building codes, any third-party agency reviews, the planning commission, and any other.
But we just stay in our lane.
State fire marshal, yeah.
Yeah, we stay in our lane. We're only talking about this turning.
Correct. All things in
Okay.
due time.
Okay, thank you. So I was wondering if that letter, is it really not to the Board of Adjustment? It should really be elsewhere. Okay. Right. Sorry, Corey.
Well, that is the report. So just to conclude, this is different, and I'll allow the applicant to explain how this is different from the already approved minor amendment number 2. The variance request before us today is only for this small section of this connector segment, 38 feet in total for the wall, and then possibly an additional 11 to 12 feet for any vertical impediment for the ramp going up for the width reduction. From 24 feet to 16 feet, the floor area ratio and other off-street parking is with under the existing variance and within the, is compliant with the number of spaces required for the new number of rooms.
So if we're going to be granting a variance, it would be for essentially 50 feet or 49.75 feet. Is that right? For that
That's an
connector and the
approximation.
edge?
That's an approximation, roughly just under 50 feet, where the 24-foot may be impacted. Again, 38 feet, absolutely,
is,
for sure, and a possible lengthening of that.
Right.
Okay, we're going to open up questions. Bill?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Edie? I'll come back to
I have
my
a couple.
questions. Yep.
So after, if we grant a variance, after this, Corey, they go directly to the planning commission then back? Is that what, because they have to hand carry, they have to bring the variance with them to go to the next step? Is that right? Because
Correct.
it seems like they've been going back and forth, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, and
So, correct. This has materially changed from the minor amendment
Right.
number 2 that was approved by the Planning Commission.
okay.
So as it has been amended, they would then need to go back to the Planning Commission. They're simply seeking a variance first for here today for this drive segment.
And if we don't grant it, have they talked about any other option of any sort anyway? Or do I ask the applicant? I mean, I always ask the city also, in case you've had conversations.
I would
and
ask
usually
the applicant.
Okay. Again, maybe this is only for the applicant. The guest rooms we see are now 48, but the last time we've seen this group, they were 60. And this has changed over just recently with this plan, or did it change before that? Again, do I only ask the applicant, or do I ask you? Because I know you're integrally involved, your department, in
Correct.
helping people work out what they're going to build.
Well, I can at least state what's definitely on the record, and that was back, again, on page 2 in the application background, there was a first minor amendment that was approved December 12th, 2025, a second minor amendment that was approved by the Planning Commission April 24th, 2026.
Right.
And so on that record, that was presented with underground parking and with 60 rooms. I can let the applicant go into a little bit more of what's changed from them, but that
Okay.
was what was approved.
So just as of a couple months ago, it was still 60 rooms. Okay. And are there any special code considerations for valet parking that we need to be thinking about? I mean, are they different? Would the connector have to be different at all or anything for valet parking versus self-parking? I know they're not planning on self-parking.
So the valet operations is done through a license, a permit itself through Chapter 194, and that has its own specific requirements. This is, and they will have to go through that, but this is, no, this is the zoning issue, and
Yes.
so that valet operations is separate from the
Okay.
zoning.
Are there any negatives that you know that would be caused by granting this 16-foot segment, the 16-foot wide segment?
From a zoning perspective, no. From an operational perspective, I would let the applicant speak to that
Okay.
for smoothness of operations.
Okay. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Edie. Rick, you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
I'm going to go through my questions. Number one, I get to say excellent report, Corey.
Yes,
It was
excellent, as always.
Fantastic. Corey, do you agree that our original NOD will be followed or adhered to the best? And why I say that is, in 2023, we got the scare picture of, this is what it looks like with cars parked up against the boardwalk. I don't know if you remember that picture. Vince will probably laugh. I was like, whoa, nobody wanted that. I'm the one who made the statement, we don't want that on the north end of the boardwalk. Do you feel that the applicant is, to the best of their intent, following the NOD for the hotel?
In terms of plain
beautiful.
view, the plans seem to demonstrate that. From the boardwalk perspective, at the ground level, the retail is what lines the street, and the parking would be, it wouldn't be visible. It would be behind there, as well as it's kind of an L-shaped. And so also from Baltimore Avenue. And then on the second floor, which is sheet A20-02, Again, it's behind the guest rooms, sitting behind
Okay.
there. So it would be obscured from view.
Okay, again, we can't control what they end up doing. We can only control the variance. Okay. Why 24 feet? Just a curiosity question. Is it just for the average car?
I went
People turning.
back, even in the 90s and before, transportation, generally, industry standards, and it all comes back to serving parking stalls.
Right.
So 24 is the industry minimum. 26, 28 feet can be recommended if you start going into parking garage design manuals. But that's where that comes from. It's an old, decades old
So it's just the
dimension.
industry
serve
standard
90
for
degree.
backing in, or not backing in, but, okay. And just for my clarification, the planning commission already approved the lift system, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
In both
okay.
minor amendment 1 and 2.
Okay. Nothing at the FAR, we saw is less. And so the planning commission still needs to see the ground level parking concept. They have not seen that yet.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'm just going through this as fast as we can. On your diagram, Exhibit A, real quick question. I guess I'm not a design person, but one side's 24, the other side's 16. 2020? Why didn't you just split?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the
Okay,
applicant,
well,
but
that's
what I would
Okay,
say
I'll
is
explain
that
that.
the 24 is where the entrance will be for the public who come in. And on the second story is where the loading and unloading zone will be, and valet will take over.
Okay.
And I believe, operationally speaking, the ground level will only be accessed by the valet operators.
Okay.
So the 24-foot was given so that the maximum width would be for those people
those-
who, for the
For
public.
ADA and, okay, well, very good, okay. Got that. Well, yeah, I would like to hear the applicant talk about that top of that two-way ramp. Oh, the other thing it says, so if I'm standing on the street looking into the cavity for the garage, one ramp goes up, one ramp goes down, right? Okay, and the 16-footer, you stated is a one-way, but in fact, it really be cars down, cars back up, correct?
I think it's, and I'll let them speak to the operations of it.
Okay.
It would serve both ingress and egress.
Okay,
But their operations would show, and this would certainly be something we would look at for the valet permit, that it would be valet operated only for that.
Okay.
To access that.
All right, and I did notice in the letter from Mr. Strange that we are in violation of 194-6B. I'll let you speak to it, but my interpretation of that code says loading within 1,000 feet, and he's arguing the ground level parking lot. I think the loading and unloading is over at the Bellhaven, so there's no issue. That's my interpretation. Do you agree?
Forgive me, I'm sorry. That was, we're getting into a little difficult territory. I really don't want him responding to what was public comment. We don't generally do that. And Mr. Strange's letter was sent in as correspondence, and if we're going to discuss it.
Okay, I will interpret.
I don't think that's appropriate for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. I will state that I'm interpreting that is not an issue because Bellhaven loading and unloading is over 1,000 feet away from this, so I have no issue with that. I just wanted to say I did read his letter, and they were all my questions to you, Corey. Thank you.
I have two very quick ones. Corey, you said this was a one-dimensional variance. That's because it's only for width, it's not for height. Was that what you meant?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and one other question. Are there any code issues about lifts that we don't know about? Or I assume there's nothing that we have to deal with today, but,
No, that went heavily into my planning commission reports for
I
minor
bet.
amendment 1 and minor amendment 2.
okay, that's all that I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Rick?
I don't have anything further.
Okay. All right, at this point, thank you, Corey. Lisa, Vince, welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah. As I said at the Planning Commission each time, I'm still Vince Robertson. I'm still with Parkowski, Yerk, and Swayze. Just a couple comments. A lot of the questions will be answered during our presentation, but a few I wanted to just get to right off the bat. One is on the screen is a rendering of the hotel, and that was important to you all back in 2023 that visually it'd be vibrant. We made this case that it'd be vibrant on the boardwalk on that corner on the north end of the boardwalk. So I wanted to reassure everybody that outward facing, it's going to look the same. You know, there's retail on the first floor all the way around. This isn't the Rehoboth Avenue corner, but there's grottos and, you know, Core Brothers back on the back corner. So that hasn't changed. It's all the internal operations, which we'll get to in a moment. And also, because this is, and I'm going to go through the chronology just to give you a little bit of a history on it, because it plays into why we're here today. We fully recognize that we need to go to the Planning Commission, because there's levels to this. You know, this is sort of almost a concept drawing for the variance. Then we have to be more specific for the Planning Commission, and if they approve it, and only if they approve it, then we get into the real details with Wally Funk with the construction level drawings. And that's important because each one of those steps is expensive, particularly the construction level drawings and then the cost estimates for the construction. It's the same group as before. Onyx and Grottos are the ownership group. I'm with Parkowski, Yerk, and Swayze. Wally's here from NOR. GTA, Geotech, they've been actively involved throughout this whole process, which is also kind of why we're here today. Pannoni did the civil engineering, the site plan. Pilot Town, they're structural, and then we have Dave Grayson with GGA, who's the contractor that's been involved with the project from day one. Historically, you'll remember we had the hearing back in June of 2023 at the Board of Adjustment, and you all approved the FAR of 2.76. After that, we went to the Planning Commission, and there was a gap of about a year and a half because we had to go through getting the FEMA maps amended. If you look, I'll go back to this just as easier, where the Grotto Pizza is on this corner right up here. There was just a corner of it that had to be amended on the FEMA flood insurance rate maps, which would have affected how that corner was built. We knew it was going to get granted. We had almost certainty of it because the Bellhaven had the same thing granted. Unfortunately, and I've told this to the Planning Commission in one of the meetings, so it's not talking out of school, we would have preferred that we got the site plan approval contingent on that map amendment, because then we could have been rolling forward. Instead, we had to wait about a year to get that map amendment before they would grant us, or a year and a half, a preliminary site plan approval. So we got that preliminary site plan approval in February, early 2025. After that occurred, the Sirocco Hotel, which is behind this, which everybody saw getting torn down, that was removed. While that was happening, Megan McDonough from GTA and her team, and all of our team, we were FOIAing the city's information for the plans that we had for the Sirocco and also the Admiral Hotel. I say we've got our friends from the Admiral here as well, to try to find out what the as-built were for their foundation, you know. And once we had the Sirocco down, that was important to see how this whole thing was going to work, because recall from the variance you all had, it was a substantial underground parking garage. The plans were permit plans. They weren't as-built, so they didn't really show what the Admiral had next door. We knew there was a concern with their foundation, which was fine with the Sirocco, but how was that going to impact excavation, sheeting and shoring, dewatering, everything for our site? And understandably, the Admiral wouldn't let us on site around that time to do any, subsurface explorations, because they were in operation. We wanted to do ground penetrating radar, which we ultimately did after we got our second site plan approval, because when we learned what we learned, Megan and her team and her design team pulled that garage back in off the Admiral and sort of shrunk it in back where the pool was going to go to take a conservative approach. And that's when we went in for the valet-only parking, because the footprint or the tub of the garage was smaller. Once the Admiral allowed the on-site investigations, there was a greater concern than we realized in terms of the disturbance on our property and what it could do to theirs. So that led to a further redesign, which further shrunk the parking garage area, increase the amount of valet parking so that it was, again, a smaller footprint. And as a result of that, there was the third site plan that, as we mentioned, was approved back in April of 2026. And I'm not going to submit these into the record, but just so you all have an idea, this wasn't something that was taken lightly. There's a multi-page just summary of the reports that GTA did for the initial plans. There was a shorter summary because we didn't have the complete investigation on the Admiral side for the intermediate set of plans. And then once we could do the actual subsurface exploration around their columns on their side, because there's columns right on the east side of the Admiral's property that hold up the parking deck, and also, I'm not sure it's a pool or there's a, sort of an amenity deck up there that are right on the property line. So there was another report that GTA did just to make sure that whatever our designs were, that they wouldn't interfere with the Admiral's property or structural or anything else, or just the operations of it. While all that's happening, and Dave Grayson's going to talk about this, costs just kept going up in terms of materials, steel, aluminum, concrete. And meanwhile, Jonathan Silver here from Onyx Ownership Group is going to confirm that, just in engineering alone, we're at $750,000 just on engineering without putting shovels in the ground, and about $1.6 million total, roughly, just again, and nothing's been built yet, with the added increase in costs. So as a result of that, I'm going to summarize it. Jonathan's going to talk about it. We've gone from 60 rooms to 48 rooms. Originally, it was an underground garage. Now it's a ground level and second floor garage. The pool's been removed. Remember, the pool was tucked back in behind Louis and the Admiral. That's no longer there. That's parking. There was more of a standard lobby. Now it's a jump lobby. The retail is still there. It was 13,725 square feet. Now it's 7,650. Again, from the outside, it's still the same. It's just been pulled eastward towards the boardwalk. In other words, that retail's not as deep as it was. And the exterior, again, the same look, that now the FAR is 2.49 versus the 2.76.
Vince, what's a jump lobby? I don't know that term. Could you tell me?
Well, I'm going to ask Jonathan that when he gets up here. He's the hotel guy. Since they didn't teach me jump lobbies in law school, so that's a better one for him to answer, just operationally. Wally's going to come up and explain these plans, but just so you know, again, what we're talking, well, on the second time around, well, you can have a seat for real quick, yeah. This is Baltimore Avenue. You'll come up the ramp, as was mentioned, valet's over here, and the valet parking then will go down this ramp and go to the lower level. And there was a question earlier about why it wasn't, just divided in half or whatever. And I think somebody on the board made the point that, all the public-facing areas are code compliant. It's the 16 feet where the valet parking operators will only be accessing that area. I lost my mouse. And it is one way, but it's one way at one time. Obviously cars got to go up and down it, but there will only be one car going one way and another car going another way at any one time. And it's gated, so the public can't mistakenly go up or down the wrong area. Again, so that's fully enclosed. This just shows the second floor. And you all are familiar with the site. It's a little bit misleading with ground level and second floor because the boardwalk is, almost a story below the elevation back up where the entrances are. It's, kind of, it slopes down. But this is just the second floor drawing, which Wally will describe. Actually, let me go back to this. You can see, again, the retail is in purple on the bottom portion of this, and it's shrunk in, I guess, in here to make space for the parking. And as Jonathan will say, that's what's so vital about having this. If this was 24 feet right here, the problem is that drive aisles don't generate rent. That's what it comes down to. And financially, that retail space is needed back in here, really all along as much as we could get to make this project viable. This is the second floor again, and it shows the rooms. Same room configuration up top. What is missing, you can see in here, is that pool area and the rooms back here. So, to get to the 48 rooms and to shrink the building envelope, it's still, again, the same outward looking. It's all in back behind where it's lost. and that's the next floor, the fourth floor. So on this one, Jonathan, if you want to come forward and talk about this a little
Vince,
bit.
could I ask you a question about this
Sure.
diagram, or should I ask one of your?
Well, let's wait till Wally comes up to go in more detail.
Okay,
I just
great.
wanted to sort of set the stage for what it is that we were talking about, so. Yeah, Dave, why don't you come on up too? Just because you're going to be talking about the expense. Well, you know what, because the first part's actually the site conditions, so you can talk about that. Yeah. So the first column on the left talks about, we need to swear you in.
This
sorry.
is Dave.
Dave Grayson, from GGA Construction.
I'm sorry. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Dave, you see on the screen the site conditions. Talk a little bit about what those mean and what's involved and whether they're expensive or not.
So going into the ground, as we all know, I live in Rehoboth myself, and I'm following the other hotel projects that are here, very expensive. More so than before because we have to basically build a bathtub. And the waterproofing basically goes underneath the foundations. We have mat slabs here for the water pressure, which are 4 foot thick. And we have to sheet pile this whole site with bracing in here because of adjacent structures and everything else like that. Just the sheet piling alone was over $2 million once we got the data from the design team. Because, early on, we're kind of working, the design process has to be far enough ahead that we get accurate pricing. So we're just dealing with concepts now, but as soon as we get more accurate information, we're updating the costs. And the cost that we got back from the trades is that a 30-car garage in the current environment with costs the way they are, and they've gone up, steel's just recently gone up 10% in the last 60 days, mainly because of oil prices. But this garage was costing about $9 million for 30 spaces. It's just cost prohibitive. And I think the other hotels that have been looking about going underground here locally, it's really just a deal breaker. It's just not affordable to do an underground garage in the current financial conditions with costs the way they are. And that's where we're at. This is a very complicated excavation. The dewatering has to get all pumped out and everything else like that's constant. All those things are, very expensive. So we've come to that conclusion with the costs, and Jonathan can speak about, the overall numbers. It's just a big chunk of money for 30 parking spaces in the ground.
And when you say redesigned, what you mean is going from the underground plan that we saw.
Above grade.
To go above.
Yeah, more shallow foundations. We don't have the dewatering. We don't have the bulk excavation, which actually is a lot of work to get that dirt out of that site from the city and truck it and everything else like that. Plus the sheeting and shoring and the stabilization of the existing structures, much more complicated. If we take that away, it's basically shallow foundations, very similar to what the Admiral has and other adjacent properties. So we're kind of matching up with that. We're not undermining any of that stuff.
Thank you.
And just the middle one that talks about the 12% year over year for steel and 16% for rebar and fabricated steel. Do you agree with that information?
Yeah, I'm not probably telling you guys anything, but since COVID, we've seen construction costs go up 50% in the last 5 years for material and labor, unfortunately. And with the gas pricing the way they are now, we're still seeing a continual push quarterly with certain trades with pricing, which is really affecting. I don't think that's real news.
One of the things, because you all are on the sort of the front end of this stuff, it goes back to what I was saying before, because there's sort of a logical question: how did you not know this back in 2023? But that goes back to how the plans are drawn and the estimations are done. They're not going to, Wally and his team and Megan and the folks that are involved, they're not going to design a detailed set of construction plans until they know they have them approved from the Planning Commission. And if it's not until that stage where Dave and his team does the estimations to see what the actual cost is, because you're not going to go through that whole step for a plan that may not get approved. So that's why now we had that prior one approved, did the takeoffs in the estimate, and realized that, you know, we really need some relief on this. So it just seems like that's a logical question. I want to
Vince,
sort of point that out.
You're not asking, though, for more FAR, and you're not asking for more density.
No.
I mean, actions speak louder than words. I mean, you're coming back with fewer rooms,
Right.
and so, I mean, this is your presentation, but I think it's, if your actions are, you're going to come with a smaller plan, a smaller footprint, and that tells us pretty much that you're sincere about the financial circumstances that are dictating these changes.
Right. And it's a balance, you know? I mean, like, you got to make sure that your cost of building it don't exceed or don't interfere with the revenue that you're going to generate off of it, you know, which Jonathan's going to explain. Yeah, thanks, which actually, it's a good segue into Jonathan's explanation.
Okay.
Oh, if you got to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jonathan Silver.
Mr. Silver, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. Yeah, so the financial impact of this redesign, you know, really boils down to lost retail space and guest rooms, 12 guest rooms, and the you know, the combined revenue loss from the two of those is 1.46 million. And so a breakdown on the retail side, we went from 13,725 square feet down to 7,650 square feet, a loss of 6,075 square feet. At a $70 a square foot average retail rate, the lost revenue from that is $425,000, 250. On the room revenue side, we work with a company, HVS, and they put together a whole sort of pro forma model for us, and they, you know, under the assumption that they thought that we could do $365 a night of our average daily rate at 65% occupancy and being open 365 days a year. The loss of those 12 rooms totaled $1,039,000. So the combined loss of that is roughly 1.46. So, you know, we lost the rooms, lost the pool, lost our lounge. There was a you know, a pretty big hit as a result of that.
But that was a balancing sort of test, you know, like how many rooms you're going to lose and.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah, correct.
It's not just an arbitrary.
Yeah, but the financial loss, though, I mean, we granted the additional FAR. It's kind of like we're here to talk about a turning radius. So I get it. There's a financial hardship here
Yeah.
because of the loss of the room, because you had to move parking into space that you
Correct.
were going to use. Okay.
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, really the question is, does the reduced scope, you know, pencil? And so I would call it the current approved plan, the 60 rooms, you know, the single level underground garage. The total cost of that project came in at 43 million. And so if you put an 8 cap on that, so the revenue, we thought we would do, you know, about 6 million, and the NOI, that's all before debt, et cetera, we thought we would do 3.25. At an 8 cap, which is a, you know, a pretty good rate for hospitality, the value of that was 40.6. So before we even start, we're underwater. The new plan, this proposed plan of the 48 keys, the reduced retail, you know, using sort of all the same metrics, revenues came in at 4.69 million. The NOI at 2.62, our value exceeded our costs. So we're above about $177,000. So we're not underwater.
And the reason we went through that is because that's one of the quick check elements for the exceptional practical difficulty. Because you're right, what's the financial have to do with the
turning
width of
radius.
a road? Yeah. But that's why. So the 4 quick check factors you already went through. I'm not going to reiterate them except to address them. I think it's significant that that 3 of them were already basically determined by you all with the 2023 Board of Adjustment decision. The nature of the zone, it's a commercial zoning district. I mean, that's undisputed. The variance is entirely internal to the parking structure. It's not visible to the public. That area where we're asking for the variance is not accessed by the public, and it'll have no bearing on the character or pattern or use of the zone. The same thing, the character of the vicinity. The vicinity reflects a whole variety of parking configurations. Again, the garage is operated exclusively by professional valet attendants. It's consistent with the valet operations previously approved twice by the Planning Commission. Again, not accessed by the general public, and no effect on the character of the immediate vicinity. And if you'll allow me one moment, I'm going to jump to the back. This is actually the character of the vicinity. So this is the Sirocco we were talking about, which is not there anymore, although that parking, it's still level, and there's actually a car parked there when I went by this morning. But next door is the Admiral, to give you some idea of the character immediately next door, which is essentially what we're asking for. The middle drive aisle that leads up, we scaled it off our site plan. That's 16 feet, 5 inches right there, which the public uses. I lost my mouse. There we go. This one right here is scaled at just 10 feet, which goes back to parking in the back. And this one, it doesn't show up on our site plan, but just looking at it, it's about the same as this. So we're essentially asking for the same sort of treatment that the Admiral has next door, although ours will be valet parked versus this one, which is open to the public. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. I mean, it's been there forever, and they've used it, as far as I know, without incident, and it's legally non-conforming. But that's the...
Excuse me, my eyes bugged out when I saw that Admiral Hotel, that little entrance on the right. I'm like, God bless those people pulling in there. I mean, it looks like it's only 8 feet wide.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't...
The other one has dumpsters in it, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah, because this one's how you get back to the back, so functionally it works as well.
Yeah.
But that's the immediate character of the vicinity because it's right next door.
But Vince, the public parking entrance is 24, right?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you were talking about, when the public are pulling in, they're pulling into a 24-foot.
A fully compliant parking lane, yeah. And it'll be well-marked, with signage. 'Cause that was one of the things we went through the Planning Commission as well, that there's signage to instruct how the valet works. So Wally will talk about this, but if you can imagine, you're pulling in, the public drive aisle is on the west side here, and it's 24 feet wide. You'll pull up, come around, make a U-turn, all signed, and then there's a valet parking stall there where you drop your keys off, go check in, and then the valet folks would either park it on the second floor or drive it back down the public space and then loop back down in through the 16-foot space. But it's only valet parking. So, yeah. Let me get back to where I was. The effect on the neighboring property. There's really not going to be any effect on the neighboring properties' uses. It's, again, all internal, not visible from Baltimore Avenue. Does not touch, abut, or affect adjoining parcels. Sort of tongue-in-cheek, I thought, well, it eliminates our pool right behind Louis and the smell of cheesesteaks and french fries, but I mean, there's maybe that positive for everybody, depending on if you like Louis or not, which I do. The other thing is that it actually has less of an effect on the neighborhood than what was previously approved. As Dave mentioned, there's really no excavation. We're not pulling out an underground parking garage and all the earth that needs to be moved somewhere down Rehoboth streets. There's no dewatering, which we'd have to work with DENREC on and figure out where that's going to be pumped to. There's less impact on Baltimore and Rehoboth Avenue for staging, just because there's just not going to be the need for the heavy equipment down in a pit to get that excavation done. And then it eliminates the real concerns we had and the protections we had in place for the Admiral with the sheeting and shoring and everything else, and probably the vibration monitors and all the other stuff that we were going to do to make sure that their building wasn't impacted in any way, shape, or form. So there's actually an improved effect or less of an effect on the neighboring properties than there was with the previously approved application. And then there's the exceptional practical difficulty. And I brought this up in 2023, and I want to bring it up again because in the Merkert decision regarding the Bellhaven, Judge Carstens in that decision said, with regard to this factor, the Supreme Court of Delaware concluded that the inability to improve one's business or to stay competitive as a result of area limitations may qualify as legitimate exceptional practical difficulty that would justify granting a variance, and that an exceptional practical difficulty exists where the requested dimensional change is minimal and the harm to the applicant if the variance is denied will be greater than the probable effect on the neighboring properties if the variance is granted. And he also talked about that financial issues like this can be a basis for a variance. So the exceptional practical difficulty, we've talked about it quite a bit, but the original approval was below-grade garages. The site conditions and construction costs forced a redesign to the at-grade level, which necessitated this one variance to maintain the retail viability of the property and the income generated by that. The garage does remain valet only. We do lose about 6,000 square feet of retail. The pool amenities eliminated, the second floor lounge is eliminated, and the 12 guest rooms are eliminated. All that also adds up to reduced income because now without those, there's not a resort fee that can be added on to the guests, particularly in the season, because that typically ties to a pool and the second floor lounge, for breakfast and that sort of thing. This is the one we talked about. We didn't take an appeal of the determination by Corey because he hadn't yet made a determination and we needed to keep this moving. But it was purposefully designed this way and presented this way so that the area we're looking for, A, is operated by valet only, but there's no parking spaces that empty onto it. And we believe that at least complies with the letter of 270-30B, if not the intent of it. But whether, to Mr. Perry's comment, that makes the variance moot or not, at least we think because of the vagueness in the code, that justifies the variance just to clean that up. The other thing is, it's important, because this is, I think, sort of the question for Corey earlier, the wider width is necessary if you do have spaces because you need to be able to make that radius into a 90-degree space or 75-degree space. We don't have any of that. It's just straight up or straight down. So there's no turning at any point where we're asking for the variance, no parking, no turning. And again, the full 24-foot width is provided everywhere else where the parking spaces are served. If we did widen it to 24 feet in that area, that eliminates about 1,100 square feet of retail space. As Jonathan mentioned, that's $70 a square foot, and there's no other place on the hotel property where you could absorb this. We've seen, you think of First Street Station and some others, second floor retail space just doesn't work real well in Rehoboth. It's just not viable. Versus losing a hotel room, which does work. It would be upside down to do that. So every dollar recapture helps the project viability as a result of this redesign. So with that, now I'm going to call Wally Funk up, who's here all the way from Chicago. Once again, he's making Rehoboth his second home, I feel like.
Zoom in on that?
Can we zoom in on it? That's a good question. You know what?
Marco, can you zoom on that at all? It's PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. That'll help, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Yeah, so Wally,
back to
give your name.
Yeah, Wally Funk with Nora Architects.
Mr. Funk, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Oh, we went back.
You couldn't go to presentation mode zoomed in? I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, no
There
problem.
you go.
Perfect.
There.
Yeah, so just to recap what we had talked about and Vince had presented before, essentially the idea was to bring the public directly up into the second floor area of the parking. That ramp up would be the full 24-foot width accessed by the public. The ramp down from Baltimore, and again, that's about 4.5 to 5 feet differential in height. So it's not that long of a ramp or that steep of a ramp. That would be valet only going down into this parking area down on grade level. And that has 24 spaces there. And then as discussed before, one of the things to point out here, that actually the end of this wall is intended to be about right here. It doesn't go into the area of the parking. The parking down here would always have the 24 feet. That little dotted line is more of the upper, showing where the upper ramp limits are indicated. So in this way, we're keeping the public separate from the valet only. The valet only is down at this level. So yeah, down, go down. Right? Yeah, we might have to.
We can just do it that way, I guess. Or maybe not.
And where again, you're saying the public drives up, I understand which side, and then they stop at where, the blue bar?
No, the blue bar just shows where the rough
the
limits of
wall
the
ends?
upper, yeah, exactly.
So they would swing around, and
Yeah.
then there's a valet,
Yeah, when we get to the,
valet.
Here we go,
A
yeah.
valet
So
Kiosk or-
on the second floor, as you're looking here, this is the ramp coming up, and then you're up at the second level here. And then the guests would be able to come around here. We've got the loading, passenger unloading right here, loading, unloading, and then the ADA spaces are also right here adjacent to the lobby area. And I know there was a question about what a jump lobby is.
Yeah.
Basically, the jump lobby is there's a small area on the first floor that would face out on Baltimore, and that's sort of like you'll come in and you'll be directed directly up to the second floor to check in. So sometimes it's one level, sometimes, in Chicago, sometimes you go to the 10th floor or whatever it is.
Thank you.
Okay, so once the person drives up the ramp, and now they're on the second level right here.
Right.
Get out of their car, the valet will jump in, drive back. They go in to the hotel. The valet will drive back down the ramp, make a U-turn down into the underground parking spot.
Yeah, correct. One thing, there is an option here too. All of these will be valet only as well on the second floor, other than the ADA spaces. So the parking action is always valet.
No, I understand that, but if the valet has to take it to the
Correct.
ground level, they will come back down the ramp, make the U-turn, and go
Yes.
down. Okay.
Right, correct. Yeah, and the idea is that, obviously we have the lifts. We don't want, the operation to open to the public. It's going to be valet only.
Understood. Thank you.
Because you have 4 lifts on that end, on that level, right?
On this level, we have, what do we got?
The drawing that I have with our materials, say you had 4 lifts there with 8 stalls.
Well, we have, yes, right along that area.
Yes.
That's under the upper rooms, correct. And that's
Okay.
the designation of that red area
Okay,
is the overhang up above. But correct, yeah, we have 4 there along that run. Then we have the passenger loading zone, and then we have the 2 ADA spaces.
okay. Thank you.
And then as we go up, then as we get to the third floor, basically the rooms ring the outside just as they had before. Same sort of balcony aesthetic effect there as well.
And that's just informational.
Right. Right, exactly. And again, when we get to the fourth floor, we've got some rooms also off the back because we've got a higher head clearance. But it essentially works the same as before. What we had talked about, the biggest differential here is that second level now doesn't have the pool, that becomes parking. That's kind of the trade-off. Well, and we lose the lounge too as part of the parking. That's the other thing.
And one thing too, thanks, Wally. There was a question about we went through this at the Planning Commission, but just so you all know, the valet or the lift spaces, they all have to comply with the parking requirements for the code, the dimensional ones. So we went through that with the Planning Commission, and we know that as well. So that essentially concludes our presentation. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward. This has been a long and winding process, but this is, as we said before, this is an iconic corner of Rehoboth Beach. And it really, I think, will be an asset to the community in the north end of the boardwalk because it does remain, commercially viable. There's good retail spaces that are there. We lost the back end of the square footage a little bit, but not the front end, which is what you see on this picture, along with keeping all the hotel rooms as you see. It's going to be a very nice amenity to Rehoboth Beach. Unfortunately, we've seen with the Bellhaven across the street, that sounds like they've put that on indefinite hold at this point. The way the market and the costs of construction have gone up, the variance is necessary so that we can get this project built. Because the other thing is, on this corner, for the value of the real estate and just for the iconic nature of it, it doesn't make sense just to put retail, like one-story retail. I mean, you could do that, and I don't think it would pencil at all, first of all, but the city doesn't want that either, just to have one level of retail there. It just wouldn't make any sense. This is the best project that can be built for the money at this corner, and we just need this one minor variance, knowing that we also reduced the prior variance substantially from the 2.76 down to the 2.49, 2.5, and reduced the number of rooms and did everything we could. Because one of the other standards also is this the least amount of variance you can apply for, or the minor effect of the variance, and it is. It's just that one minor thing for a non-public area of the parking garage. So we'll open ourselves up to any questions that you all have, but hopefully
A few questions, yeah. Rick, do you have any?
No, I don't.
Okay, Edie?
Yeah, a couple. I went back, as I said, and I rewatched the April 2023 before I came today. And I think I know the answer, but if you don't mind commenting, at that time, your team said there were 3 columns of here's what won't work, here's what will work,
Right.
and so forth, that we spent some time on. And at the time, your folks said 50 rooms would not work. You said they're very, very barely viable at 60. You said you were at the very bottom of the threshold. This isn't pushing anybody's nose in anything. I'm looking.
That's with an underground garage.
Yeah, you're right. But the lowest possible investment could be carried was for 60 keys for positive cash flow. So the reason that now that 48 is viable is?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. One is there was going to be underground parking with a whole lot of issues we didn't know about.
Right.
You know, that's the real issue. The 60 rooms became viable because we needed the underground parking garage. But then once we started digging into what the underground parking garage would require and the sheeting and shoring and the structural issues on both properties and the costs of it, I've learned a lot on this, this journey we've had. One of the things that Dave and Wally talked about, and Megan, is that, like, for example, the parking garage, you need to build it so it doesn't float. And that means that the base of it, tell me if I'm wrong, folks, but has to be weighted down with steel and concrete so it doesn't essentially pop up from flotation from the water underneath. And there was knowledge that that was going to be expensive, but over the past 3 years, that has gone up astronomically, you know? And so I would answer that, this is a long, winding answer, but the math's completely different now than it was 3 years ago. That's really all I can tell you. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. But there is an important part. We wanted to be, and I started with this, I want to conclude with this, we wanted to be true to that original Board of Adjustment approval, though, because, you know, and it's written into here, but you could tell from the conversation, and I watched it again as well, the importance of this design, you know, not the parking part of it, but this design, and that was, you know, reflected throughout the decision, and I feel like we have been honest to that, you know, in going forward, so.
So this is still, in general, the vista that you're working with?
Yeah,
your team?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Minus the fireworks.
Minus the fireworks.
Minus the fireworks and
Please
the
don't make
underground
that a
parking.
condition. Fireworks all summer.
Jan insisted on garage doors, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but in fairness,
that's
we had talked about,
That's
you know,
important.
Wally's
It looks the
team
same.
had designed it, but that was one of the things that even I stood up here and said it, you know, sort of mirrored Funland and some of the other things on the other end of the boardwalk to keep that vitality, so, yeah.
Good.
That's all for me.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. Obvious question. The employees, the valets have to be trained
Right.
with the lifts, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and the valets, and this is from personal experience, valets will be there 24/7. I got trapped in a hotel because there was
Yes.
no valet.
And I mean, I didn't mean to discount that, and we didn't
Right.
either. We've been through that at the planning commission, you know, in terms of all the operational side of it.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
And just an obvious question. I'm sure there's some mathematics as to that you could have eaten more space into that larger retail spot number 2. Is there math behind that this is, you know, I'm sure that a viable restaurant with tables, you know, you could have eked out additional square footage, but were you getting past the point where you said it's just too much into the restaurant?
Yeah, that was it. And there's also, you know, and I will say on that number 2, oops, let me go back to it. This line, this internal line may move some because retail number 1's grottos. And, you know, one of the things, because again, it's conceptual, we know we need kitchen space, you know, for them. So that's potentially going to slide here, which makes this retail, you know.
Yeah, I was focusing the beige coming in. I mean,
Like back here.
Yeah.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions there is once you start, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot, 8 feet, right?
Right.
But what starts to happen is that core of this, you know, yellow beige area, once that starts to slide even a couple of feet, everything, it starts to
All the way up.
ripple really
Okay.
fast. And one of the things that happens too, because we also have the step back requirements for the floors above, we have to adhere to that angle. So you're behind that, and when you start dropping that down, that line, again, we could, you see that a lot where you do this and you sort of step back, but that's very expensive and very inefficient, and you get into very large structure. So the essential thing is, once we start doing that, that little 8 feet starts to just crawl into a bigger,
So you did look at, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. They were my questions.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. At this point, I think we open it to anyone in the public wish to speak? The audience? No? Okay, we're going to close down the public portion and discuss this amongst ourselves. And go forward.
I'll play lawyer on this one.
For a change, right?
You may have competing lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think I'm not at all sure that 270-30B applies, to be very honest. It says, circulation and turning aisle. I did some AI research, and there are lots of other municipalities where the requirement for a connector is 10 feet, including, I checked, the 4 jurisdictions around here, Delaware, Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina, and there are a lot that are 10 feet or have nothing in terms of connectors. So I was initially worried about the 16, but unless Gemini is totally off base, which it has been, hallucinating, I'm not at all uncomfortable with the 16. It is valet only. In terms of the exceptional practical difficulty, I think that the presentation on the issues of the underground hotel and what has happened with construction costs and interest rates, do meet that. And in some ways, the exceptional practical difficulty, frankly, is the hydraulics with an underground garage. And I think it affected us 3 years ago, and I think it applies now where unfortunately the costs just don't pencil out. So I'm comfortable with this. I don't see a public safety issue looking at some of the other jurisdictions that allow 10 feet, 14 feet. So I think 16 I'm comfortable with.
And I kind of agree that the fact that the lift system and the valets work to the benefit here.
Yes.
Had this been a public, I would have been, okay, it's a little risky. Sure. But, and again, I still think, look at the Admiral. They've been using that for years, and it's way too narrow. I really don't have an issue with this ramp, knowing it's trained valet staff, operating this. And I mean, even if they were to sell, if it's going to be a hotel forever, the lift system will have to be there forever. Right. Therefore, valet for.
And I know but we realize that because it has to get approved for valet by the city,
Right.
So they're going to, whoever owns it.
All right. Rick, Edie, thoughts?
I'm in total agreement with my colleagues. I think the variance should be approved.
I'm in total agreement as well. I think Bill set forth very clearly a sound legal analysis as to why we should grant this request.
Nice job, Bill.
I'd be happy to make a motion unless Bill already has one.
Were you typing, Rick?
Bill might actually have it
Oh,
here.
no, I don't have one.
The dueling attorneys are once again.
I let Rick do the drafting, I do the editing.
Well, and you may well have to edit this. I move that, notwithstanding any provision of the zoning code to the contrary, including but not limited to section 270.30B, the requested variance in case number 0726-06 be approved in reference to the identified connector segment as shown on the July 23rd, 2026 plan set, parent sheet A20-01, closed parents. The staff marked copy of that sheet in BI Exhibit A. The staff measured 16.0 foot clear width and the 49.75 foot maximum plan measured path. The staff verified calculations in the building inspector report submitted to the Board of Adjustment in case number, whatever I had. Case number.
0762.
Case number 0726-06, dated August 14th, 2026. Period.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I had the easy part this time.
Give us your vote against the quick checks, please.
Well, I do believe that the case has been made pursuant to the quick checks test, that there is an exceptional practical difficulty. Clearly, you know, let me just pull this up. Clearly, the nature of the zone, which is commercial, you know, what they are proposing is in keeping with that character and use, and it's consistent with the character and uses in the immediate vicinity, such as the Admiral Hotel. The impact on neighboring properties is de minimis. As a matter of fact, it is lessened by virtue of the fact that they would be permitted to restructure their proposal to have this connector, which again is only a valet use and not for the public. I do believe that there is an unnecessary hardship and exceptional practical difficulty, both from a financial standpoint and from the standpoint of the underground parking needs, you know, and also that the public good and zoning intent is not substantially harmed. As a matter of fact, in my view, it's improved.
Thank you. Edie?
I vote to approve. The first three quick check factors are no-brainers. They're check mark, check mark, check mark. And the exceptional practical difficulty, I believe, has been established by Vince's presentation and the testimony of some of his team. They've encountered some unbelievable challenges, and this compromise plan that we see as compared to what we saw in April of 2023 seems to be a very reasonable way to maintain the look, feel, and of the project the way we were so impressed with it back all those months and years ago.
Thank you, Edie.
I support, for the same reasons as my colleagues, I believe all the quick check factors have been met and that the location presents an exceptional practical difficulty in terms of underground parking, and that this minor variance, if it is necessary at all, clearly is merited in light of the difficulties that they've presented.
Thank you, Bill. And I too support the motion. And what I really appreciate is you could have come back in here with that one depiction from 2023 with, we're putting parking on the ground floor, which would have been legal, which would have been fine, which would have been horrible for the city. So the fact that you're doing this, keeping the stores, keeping it looking that, I think it's a job well done. So thank you. So this is approved.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, let's move on. Any other business? We have none, Marco, right? And I think have a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Corey, anything in September?
Anything in the pipeline?
Anything you're working, or you're afraid to? He's afraid to tell us.
I'm afraid to tell because I'm telling him don't say anything.
Okay, if you can't say it, that's fine.
There might be something possibly for next month, and the staff is working on it right now.
Well done with the answer. All right, thank you. Thank you, Marco.